What is up, YouTube? So as you can tell, there's a little bit of a scenic difference in the background. I recently just got a cat. I'm quote unquote fostering the cat. Her name is Riggy. Riggy the kitty. She may jump up here. But I just came back from a vacation and it has been a wild ride. Locked in a $6,000 client, which is crazy. Now me and my business partner are splitting it halfway, so it's 3K, 3K, but still locked in a $6,000 client, which is the most that we've done so far. And so that's kind of cool. What other updates can I give you? Yeah, no, I'm procrastinating on 15 videos that I have to edit for this client. Well, technically 16. Finished 2 yesterday. And yeah, need to catch up on those. But before I do that, I want to talk about how the perception other people have of you and how you are to deal with that perception and your security as a man or as a person regarding those perceptions. So something that's happening in my personal life is there's this one individual who is not necessarily doesn't like me, right? Doesn't like me and is finding lots of reasons why they don't like me. They have this fabricated concept of who I am. And so the only way that they view me is through that perspective, right? Completely fair. That's their prerogative. Now, the part where people start failing or start kind of letting that affect them is when they're not secure in themselves as an individual. And if you're not secure in yourself as an individual and you're not necessarily you're not sure of who you are. You haven't proven to yourself your own competence. You haven't discovered your own identity and developed your identity through suffering, through trial, through error, through learning, through growth, through inspiration, through motivation, through discipline, through consistency. If you haven't proven to yourself who you are, other people's opinions will dictate who you are. Other people's opinions will define who you are, and that's how you will interpret yourself. Now, what I'm realizing with this individual is that they do not have a secure identity. They do not have that confidence in themselves. Their identity is based off of what they do rather than who they are. And who you are now, that is an amalgamation of a lot of different factors. But in this specific case, this individual does not have a secure identity. And so every perception that they have of me is a fault in their own identity. I'm fit, I'm healthy, I'm active, I'm in a position of authority. This person's fat. This person has mental illness, like actual mental illness, depression. Yeah, you can see there, Riggy's right there. Um, this person is unhappy with themselves. This person's not in a position of authority. This person has given up on their dreams. I am pursuing my dreams. I'm pursuing my goals. And what is making me realize that this is a matter beyond anything that I can communicate. And my job as somebody in authority is to communicate, right? I'm supposed to communicate with this person. I'm supposed to communicate with all people and make my expectations clear. But I also have to lead by example. And I definitely do my best to lead by example. But because this person has these preconceived notions of me or these perspectives of me that are fabricated by their own faults because they're projecting themselves on me or they're projecting the things that they hate about themselves on me, there's not much that I can communicate in order to change that, because that would entail that this person is wrong in their perspective, and it is so difficult for people to accept that they're wrong. And that could be very wrong in this position as well, but my mindset, my demeanor, the way that I treat this person, the way that I act, it tells me that I'm not wrong because I'm doing my best to be respectful, be courteous, even though they don't like me. And it's not affecting my identity, their thoughts about me. So that's informing me that I'm not wrong in this position. Because if it was affecting me, then I'd say like, oh, okay, well, one, either my ego's way too high, and my pride is way too high, or B, I am actually doing something wrong, or C, well, this person is just insecure about themselves and is projecting it on me. But because I have that security in myself, but because I have that confidence in myself that's not built off of me being a man, because that's a lot of you hear this in the red pill manosphere world is because you're a man, you're better than women. Because you're a man, women should submit to you. This is a completely different topic, but that's like the example is that because you're a man, you deserve these things. No, that's not how reality works. In some senses, it does work like that. In some sense, in this case, it doesn't work like that. My identity is not defined off of me being a man. It's defined off of my repeated efforts towards a goal, towards my discipline towards goals, to the point where the bare minimum has now become what most people strive to be, or what I used to try to excel to be is what the bare minimum is. So it's so interesting. Tangent upon this conversation is that I was very upset about going on vacation. Why? Because I didn't think that I'd earned a vacation. I was going with my girlfriend. We're going to go visit her hometown. It was going to be a wonderful time. Now, I was very upset and I texted her and I like communicated this with her. Hey, I'm going to make this a work trip. Like, I cannot not work. I can't not focus on what I'm doing. I don't feel like I have excelled to the position where I can take a vacation. I don't think I'm comfortable to the point where I can take a vacation. I don't think I'm in the financial spot right now where I can take a vacation. And she's like, okay, like, okay, you can make it a work trip. Like, work, do what you need to do. Got trying to wait for Riggy to come up here. Um, all these reasons, and I was talking with a coworker of mine who is somebody who I respect deeply, because they do have that leadership style. They have that work ethic. Tangent upon a tangent. My favorite quote is, "Why would you heed the advice of somebody who you consider a fool, somebody who you would not want to replicate or emulate or live or have their lifestyle? Why would you follow somebody whose life you would not want to switch places with?" That's paraphrased from St. John Chrysostom. This person is somebody who I emulate, I respect in their leadership style, and in the patience that they have towards people, and the work ethic that they have, and the calm demeanor in the situation that they're presented. I respect this person a ton. Now, with that being said, this person like, oh, Colin, you deserve a vacation because you've gotten your own apartment and you've gotten a new car and you've had a successful side business and you've been here at this location for a year and a half now and you're doing great and you've got all these responsibilities. I was like, yeah, but that's the bare minimum. Like, that's the bare minimum. Excuse my hair. I just got done with a workout. It's a bare minimum to have your apartment. And that's what I told him. I was like, it's the bare minimum to have an apartment. It's the bare minimum to work a full-time job. It's the bare minimum to do these things. It's just called surviving. It's just called living. Like, it's the bare minimum. That doesn't deserve. He was like, you're right. He was like, you're right, but still, like, try to enjoy it. If you need to make it a work trip, make it a work trip. I was like, gotcha. I'll do that. But what was the purpose of me saying that? Oh yeah, I was very frustrated because I did not think that I was in the position, because my my expectation for myself is now much higher than what other people have of yourself, or of their goals, or of their standards, or of their living conditions. My expectation is higher because I have demonstrated that I can excel, and if I don't excel, it's something wrong with me. Now, back to the main topic. I just thought that was an interesting perspective that I just recently kind of developed or learned or was able to articulate, was that, yeah, no, the when somebody excels, and I'm not saying that I'm excelling in some certain capacity, but when my routine has become the bare minimum, and people think that you should be rewarded for that, I don't agree with that. I still don't think I should have gone on vacation. I'm glad that I went because it did open my perspective. It opened my eyes to the reality of possibilities out there. But still, it's like, I don't deserve a vacation. I spent $2,000 on that trip. I could have saved that $2,000 and invested it back into my business. That frustrates me. It was a great time, sure. I love spending time with my girlfriend, sure. But at the same time, logically speaking, I would have rather not have gone. Excuse me. Back to the identity crisis, or back to the self identity, or building your identity. Because this person's opinions, or preconception of me does not affect me, because it doesn't define who I am, but the perspective that I have does define who they are, because I am a projection of themselves. I am the projection of everything that's wrong with them. That illustrates to me that, hey, I'm not in a wrong position. No, I could be, again, but from my perspective, I don't think I am. The self identity that you have to build as a man has to be something tangible based off of actions. You cannot reading a book will not make your bed, right? Thinking philosophically will not pay your bills. It will not make your bed. Now, converting that to social media, sure, you can make money teaching philosophy on social media, sure. Separate. Reading a book will not make your bed. You have to build your identity based off of your actions, based off of what you do. And that's not necessarily building your identity, because you build your identity through introspection, through trials, through how you deal with situations, through who you are when nobody's watching. That's what builds your identity. But what strengthens that identity, what reinforces who you are, is your actions. Your actions define who you are, because that's what other people see. People can view you as somebody who's kind, somebody who's patient, because of your actions. But maybe on the inside you're not that. Maybe you're a very angry person. But because your actions are patient and kind and quiet, they see you as patient, kind, or quiet, because that's what your actions are demonstrating. Unless they have a different perspective of you, of course, based off of their own projections. Something I did want to ask is like, where do I, or I'm trying to figure out where I project my insecurities onto other people. And I can definitely view it when I see another successful videographer. I'm like, oh, that guy, I'm better than that guy. Like, he's not that good. But it's me projecting my insecurities that he's better than me upon him. And that's easy to criticize. It's much easier to criticize somebody who you have a negative perspective on. So that's why we project our faults on them. But that's a place. Look at Rigi right there. That's where I try to check myself, and I'm like, hey, stop. Don't take responsibility, take ownership, improve, be better, learn. Don't project. Don't use that as a scapegoat to give yourself the right to criticize or to give yourself the right to complain. And that's something that not most people do. Most people are not self-aware. Self-awareness requires you accepting or being able to realize that you are wrong. And as I said before, most people do not want to be wrong. Most people cannot be wrong. And I think that's the reason why I converted to Orthodoxy, was because I was wrong about my entire belief system, my entire belief structure. And I was seeking the truth. I was looking for reasons to be wrong rather than reinforcing my biases, rather than reinforcing my previous beliefs. I was trying to find places where those beliefs faltered so that I could replace that with something successful. And I try to do that with my work. I try to do that with my videos, with my editing, with my relationships. Like, what am I doing wrong? How can I improve upon that and find what is right? Most people don't do that, though. Most people don't have the mental bandwidth or the mental capacity or the maturity to be self-aware, because again, it requires you being wrong, and it takes a lot to be wrong. And there's areas where I suffer myself, where I'm prideful. I'm incredibly prideful when it comes to my job, or when it comes to not necessarily my job, but I'm incredibly prideful when it comes to my beliefs or what I'm capable of. Like, I know I'm capable of doing this. I know I'm capable of doing a good job. So I'm going to be prideful about it and like defend me doing a good job. And if there is feedback that I can receive, I would like it to come from somebody who is better than me, somebody who's emulating me, or somebody who I'm trying to emulate, somebody in a position where they're doing much better and they have the right to tell me where I'm wrong. Other people, I don't take their standard seriously. So, for example, if you're training at the gym and there's an incredibly obese person and he comes to you and says, oh, you're doing something wrong, but then you can stand up and you can show them, hey, like, I have a six pack, right? Now, granted, I'm 160 pounds, but separate from that, I can bench 285 pounds. I can squat 355 pounds. I don't really deadlift. Look at Riggy. This is Riggy. Say hi, Riggy. So, anyways, like, not to be bashful or prideful about my beliefs or what I can do, my capacities. It is, though, a fact that if an obese person comes to me and saying, "Oh, you're doing that wrong," or "Oh, your training style isn't working," I'd be like, "Dude, what? What do you mean? Huh? Who who are you to tell me what I'm doing is wrong when I have achieved all these different things?" That's completely reasonable in my mindset. And you can translate that to any level of success or any level of your world, health wise. If somebody, or I guess I already use a health wise exercise, but at work, if somebody comes to you and they've been at the job and they clearly struggle with work or with mental illness or with communicating or with all these different things with insecurities, and they come to you and they say, hey, you're doing a bad job, why would I listen to you? Just out of principle, why would I listen to you? Who are you to tell me what to? And that sounds very prideful, right? That sounds very prideful. But you have to view it through that lens of an obese person telling you what you're doing is wrong. Sure, everybody has gold nuggets that they can teach you. That's something Jordan Peterson talks about. Is everybody has good advice that they can give you. Absolutely. But at the same time, some people you just shouldn't listen to some people. If it is a boss that's telling you, hey, you need to correct this, now you can take that feedback and be like, hey, I really do need to work on that, and I'm going to work on that. Because this is somebody who, number one, is in a position of authority above you, so you have to respect them. Number two, it's because they're in a position that you are striving to be in, so what they have to say matters, unless you can clearly tell from their intention that they have a negative intention. But typically, at least in my experience, it's been from a good intention. They give me feedback because I'm trying to, in earnest, improve. You have to view everything through that lens. Let's say videography wise, if a person who doesn't have taste or doesn't have good clear visuals of videography and they say, hey, what you did was wrong, it's like, oh, okay, thank you. If a fat person corrects a soccer player, like, oh, you should have done this, okay, thank you. In one ear, right out the other. Why? Because this person has no credibility to what they did, no credibility for what they have to say, no credibility for anything. And that's just the reality. That's the reality of the world. So strive to follow examples of people who you respect, who you're trying to strive to be like, because that does matter a lot. Your identity is based off of that, off of following the example of people before you who are doing things well. That brings in a whole different topic of conversation, which is the struggling of building yourself up in this modern age, because we are in an unprecedented times. I imagine this is the same way it was during like the industrial revolution. It's these industrialists, they had to pave their own way. They had to pave their own way. They had to figure it out on their own because nobody else had a blueprint for what to do. Just like nowadays, people don't have a blueprint for AI. And I just came from an AI seminar, or it was like an AI sales seminar. Super fascinating. But these people are on the forefront of these technologies and they realize like the flaws of the technologies or the errors of the technologies. But at the same time, they're at the forefront of it. They're building businesses. They're making tens of thousands of dollars off of these technologies because they're the forefront of it. They're paving the way. They don't have anybody. They can't go to a boomer and be like, hey, how do I do this? Like, how do I do that? No, boomers don't know about that. Boomers also don't know about investing. Why? Because they invested when Coca-Cola was at 2 cents and now it's at 200 or 300 or whatever it's at right now. They're not smart because they invested. They just invested at the opportune time. They're not smart because they bought a house for $20,000 and then 60 years later are selling it for $700,000 or 1.2 million in California. They're not smart because they did that. They're not special. They just invested at the opportune time. So when it comes to the life now that people have, is why would I listen to my dad about social media when he has no idea anything about social media or making money online or the new world? Or the reason why I'm going to school is because I'm trying to respect his decision or respect his sacrifice for my life. Do I think it's dumb that I'm going to school? Absolutely. Have I told him my perspective of it? Absolutely. But out of respect, I'm going to go to school unless I make 10,000 a month in video. Anyways. Projections are signs of your own lack of self-awareness. So always be aware of where you are projecting your faults onto other people or projecting your insecurities. And this happens a lot in my relationship, is that I sometimes get upset because this person that I'm in a relationship, because my girlfriend, because I'm struggling with this or I'm not happy here. And so my projection on her is like, I'm resenting you in this current situation because I'm not in the place where I want to be, or I'm not able to unlock the doors that I'm wanting to unlock, and it's your fault. I'm just projecting my faults, and then I have to take a step back and be like, okay, I'm projecting this. She's done nothing wrong. I'm the one who's projecting these things. I need to chill out. I need to apologize, or I need to switch my perspective. These are different examples of areas in your world where you may be projecting your insecurities and not really giving another person a fair chance. And I think giving people a fair chance to be themselves matters a lot. And you can kind of sniff out when people are being inauthentic or when people are being fake and putting on a persona, putting on a mask. You can sense that easily. because it just smells of inauthenticity. They justify themselves too much, or they explain themselves too much, or they're trying to earn the right to be heard, or earn. From what I understand with projections, and whenever they have a problem with you and they're explaining and they're over explaining and they're talking the whole time, and you're sitting there quietly just listening to them because they're trying, and you don't grant them this, but they're trying to validate their perspective, and they're asking you to validate their projection of you. And I'm not supposed to give them that. I'm not supposed to validate them in their perspective, because their perspective is wrong. It is a projection that they have that's wrong. My job now is to question them and to ask them, "Hey, does this really match reality? Does this really match what's going on, or what's actually going on? This seems to be a lot deeper." And I guess right now what I'm trying to figure out is, how do I ask those questions? I'm not a psychologist, and I don't have the emotional bandwidth to care about what other people think, or to defend other people's, or to even get to those points. Like, that's not, I don't care enough. I don't have the emotional bandwidth enough to be like, okay, let's actually dive into why you don't like me. I don't If you don't like me, you don't like me. I don't care. It's not going to affect me. It doesn't affect me at all. When people don't like me, it doesn't affect me. I've burnt bridges before. I've had bridges being burnt on me before. I don't care. I remember this one example. This guy, he was a photographer, and we met up through a community group, and it was like a community self-improvement group. And we got connected there. He lives in Houston. I live in Houston. And we'd text every once in a while. He was Catholic. I was Protestant. We'd have really interesting conversations. And then I got super busy. And he sent me a text message like in April. And it was like, "Hey, man, I'm just going to Costa Rica." I'm from Costa Rica. It's like, "Hey, man, I'm going to Costa Rica. I just wanted to let you know, like, this is super cool." It's like, and I didn't open the message till August. And I was looking through my messages, like, oh, shoot, like, I missed this message. And I texted him back. I was like, "Hey, man, like, I'm so sorry. I missed this message completely. I hope it was a great time. Like, how'd it go?" And then the next day, he sent me a response. He's like, "Oh, I sent you this text in April, and I don't I don't think I have any reason, or I don't feel any obligation to answer how it went, because you took 6 months or 4 months to respond to me, and it was a crash out that he had, like an emotional crash out that he had, because I didn't respond." And sure, I'm at fault for not responding, but at the same time, that's kind of the reality of the world, is people get busy and don't respond. And it's not something personal that's being done to target you. It is just It's just life. And so I've actually seen him at a gym that I train at two gyms that I train at. I've seen him there, and I just ignore him because he had an emotional crash out, and I have no interest in that kind of person. I have no interest in being associated with that kind of person that has that kind of emotional outburst. Hi, hi, Riggy. She wants some attention. But yeah, I hope this conversation kind of makes sense, because it is something I think that we're going to encounter more and more in our life. But at the same time, we don't have to deal with it as entrepreneurs, as people who are building themselves up. Like, there's a point when you don't have to engage with these things. I'm in a position where I unfortunately do have to engage, but at the same time, I'm going to talk with my boss and tell him, like, "Hey, I don't need to be doing this. I can take a step back. I don't need to be a supervisor over this person. I see that you want this to be a growth opportunity, but at the same time, I just fundamentally disagree with you thinking that this is a potential growth opportunity for this person, because this person clearly has these projections about me. The more we communicate, the more we're validating his perspective of me. There's no point for us to have these conversations. There's no point for me to be in a position of authority in the strict sense above him, if this is already a preconceived notion view that he has of me." So, like, it's not going to change, and I don't really care. I don't need to be doing this. I can take a step back. My ego, my pride is not affected because I take a step back and I don't want to deal with this person, because I'm not the only one who doesn't want to deal with this person, or who's had conflict with this person of insubordination, or lack of feedback, or lack of growth. People don't want to work with this kid. So I don't have any problem taking a step back. It doesn't affect me at all taking a step back and focusing on something else, because that doesn't define who I am. It doesn't define what I'm made of. It doesn't define what I've done. It doesn't define what I've achieved. So I don't need to do this. And that's I'm if I see him today, that's what I'm gonna tell him. It's like, hey, I get you wanting to have this growth thing. This is not gonna change. Like, unless he's willing to give me a fair shot, which I don't think he is, and I don't think he's capable of because of the personality that this person has, because of the perspective that this person has, because of the mindset that this person has, the mental illness that this person has, the insecurities that this person has. I don't think they're going to give me a fair shot. And that's completely fine. I don't really care. I'm completely fine with them not giving me a fair shot. But at the same time, I'm not going to stress myself out regarding this situation if they're not going to give me a fair shot. Like, why would I put myself in that spot? There's only so much growth that can happen. There's only so many lessons that you can learn when it just becomes monotonous and like pointless. Like, why am I going to shoot myself in the foot? Doesn't make sense. Why am I going to keep cutting myself? There's no reason for me to do that. So that's the conversation that's going to be had today. Ideally, if he's there, which I think he should be there. At least my boss will be there. I don't know if this kid will be there. But yeah, I just wanted to share that your person should be built. Your identity should not be built off of other people's opinions of you. It should be built off of what you have discovered about yourself, how you have built your identity, and especially the identity building in the modern age is incredibly important because of social media. You'll compare yourself with everybody that your identity will become shaky. And I'm not gonna lie, it's happened to me before. Like, my identity has definitely become shaky in certain senses because I see people who are incredibly fit, who are 200 pounds straight muscle. And it's like, damn, I'm lacking something. I'm not lacking anything, but it is that insecurity of, hey, I wish I could be bigger. I wish I could have these genetics where I could be 200 pounds lean muscle. Maybe I should hop on steroids to achieve these goals because this person has been on steroids to achieve those goals. So I need to do that too, because that's a personal goal that I have, or a personal achievement that I would like. Look at Riggy up there. She's so sweet. If she wasn't a sweet cat, I would give her back, but she's a sweet cat. And there's definitely areas where I need to grow, like with my patience, with my relationships, with my self-discipline, with my prayers, with my spiritual life. I keep buying books that I'm not reading, so I need to improve on that. Like, there's definitely areas of growth. But that's having the self-awareness to realize, hey, you need to grow, Colin. You need to level up. You need to improve. You need to lock in a little bit more. You have to have a little bit more discipline. But that comes with time and it comes with action. You can't change overnight. It takes at least 2 weeks where your habits become, or where your decisions become habits, become routine. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoy. Make sure to drop a follow. Leave a comment down below what you think about this. Anyways, God bless.